everybody, I am Dan Selcke of winnerscoming.net, here with Mia Johnson of fansheaded.com. This is Take the Black Live, talking all things Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, fantasy, sci-fi, genre, all that stuff. We are still in our studio-adjacent space with the city of Chicago behind us. They're still fixing it up in there.
Yeah.
Soon. I don't know. Maybe we'll be back next week in there. It's possible.
Maybe, hopefully.
And before we start, I'd like to say I'm a little sick. So if I seem incoherent or weird, I'm going to blame it on the bug.
Yikes.
Who's all here, Mia?
We've got our good friend Julie, Ismail, Kathleen, and Sunny Orlando, and John and Jen. Hello, everybody.
All right. Let's just dive right in, shall we?
Yeah.
I figured, okay, the big news to come out of this week was obviously everything going down before, during, and after pretty much the D23 Summit, Expo, sorry.
Yeah, Expo, yeah.
In Anaheim, California, which is Disney's big explosion of information. It laid out all its cards on the table. It told us what was going to happen. And because Disney is so all-encompassing and huge, of course, there was some Game of Thrones stuff wrapped into that.
Yeah, look at
Namely,
that.
guess who is joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
It is
Kit Harington. I mean, it's a cliche, I think, that like you're not really anyone in Hollywood until you play a superhero.
Yeah, at this rate, yeah, definitely. And somebody joked it was like Marvel lost one Stark but gained two more. I was like, oh god,
Oh, that's funny. That's cute. But he's playing a character named Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Who have you ever heard of? I never heard of him. Black Knight. Sorry,
Yeah.
Black Knight, alias or Dane Whitman in The Eternals, which is an upcoming big budget.
Oh yeah.
Kind of tentpole mark that I think is going to be really important to their like kind of next phase of development. About vaguely like an eternal race of beings to protect Earth from nasty people.
You're on the money for the most part, yeah.
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 I mean, okay, I will say it's pretty funny. So Black Knight is a medieval themed superhero who wears a lot of black, who has a cursed sword, who's trying to restore his family honor. It's like they gave him the most Jon Snow role possible that isn't actually Jon Snow.
I know. That is kind of... I wonder if that was something that they were looking into, like, comic book history. Like, if they wanted Kit Harington in there and we were like, oh, God, what can we... Like, how can we get a role for him? Or if they legitimately wanted Black Knight in there, and then it just so happened that Kit Harington fits the bill.
I think it's just typecasting.
Aww.
But yeah, you're right. I'm not sure if they wanted Black Knight and like, oh, he's perfect because he isn't on that sword show.
Yeah. I don't see. Here's the thing. It's because Disney and Marvel, they have some really good casting.
That's very true.
First of all, they do.
They always have.
But it's kind of like now, if you're a big enough celebrity like Mahershala Ali, who you can leverage yourself and be like, look, I want to be in a Marvel movie, and I'm gonna be who I say I want to be.
Is that true? Like,
that's
I would figure that like Marvel is so big, like they're doing the picking, like, or are there people who are powerful enough to go to them and say like, put me in a thing.
When you have an Oscar on your hands, I think you kind of have. If you want to be Blade, by all means, please play Blade. But I think like somebody like Kit Harington, if you're coming from Game of Thrones, I think that also gives him the leverage. I don't know if this is something that he like really wanted to do. Or maybe he's just like, fine, okay, I'll take the money, please, whatever.
Fine, I'll take your aircraft carrier full of money.
Yeah. But you know what? Nonetheless, I'm happy that he is joining.
He's getting it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like the MCU is so all-encompassing now. It's almost to the point where like, I'm just like, it's almost like more actors who are outside of it than in.
Oh,
I mean, that's not literally true, but it feels like it is sometimes.
It definitely feels like it, yeah. And so it's him, Richard Madden, of course.
Richard Madden, yeah, is also in
Eternals. So that is really awesome.
I mean, Sophie Turner was, this isn't MCU, but she was like Jean Grey.
Yeah, she's Jean Grey.
And now the X-Men are owned by it. They could keep doing it.
They could. I don't think Sophie Turner is gonna. I think that whole cast is gonna be turned over. Like, Peter Dinklage was in Infinity War, so they'll take anyone they can get.
Maisie Williams is in anything called The New Mutants. It's gonna be released at some point in the near future.
Yeah,
or distant future, whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Hey, yeah.
Good career move. It's gonna be interesting to see like where the cast goes from here, because
That's true. Yeah.
Obviously they have so much cachet, they can more or less write their own ticket, and I almost feel like being in a superhero movie is kind of like the path of least resistance in some way, because they're all the rage right now, and of course you're gonna do it.
Exactly.
So I mean, I'll go see it because, you know, they are good.
Yeah.
I mean, like they're popular for a reason.
Makes me wonder. Like, I love Gwendolyn Christie, and of course, you know what?
Well, she's in Star Wars.
She's in Star Wars, but I feel like she's been so underutilized.
Definitely.
So you know what? Marvel can bring her back, or anybody. I just want to see more of her. So
I'm sure there's something they could. Yeah,
please, I'm on my knees.
She's terrific. Or it's kind of fun that someone like Emilia Clarke is gonna. I bet you anything that if she asked, they would be like, "Oh, we will make you the new Iron Man or whatever."
Yeah,
so
100%.
Quick.
Yeah.
But you know, she's instead deciding to do quirky elf romantic comedies.
I'm not against that. It's so cute.
Me neither. But yeah, it'll be fun to see their journeys, especially after Kit Harington, a well publicized kind of went to a wellness center after the end of the show.
Yeah.
Hoping to get back on his feet. I'm sure it's fine.
So something to keep him busy.
He wasn't at D23.
No, he didn't.
But like the rest of them were.
Yeah, the rest of the cast were. So his was just sort of like just the announcement, but he wasn't there.
Anyway, speaking of D23, not all that happened involved Kit Harington and former Game of Thrones star Jon Snow. Do you have any comments about any of this?
Do we have any comments about...
If not, it's
so
fine.
for the casting, it's either lazy casting or writing Game of Thrones wave from Louise. With him and Richard Madden, it will get publicity even if you don't know the characters. I mean, you know what? That's true because they are taking a risk with these Eternal characters.
That's true. I mean, they are kind of new.
Yeah, I would bet you barely anybody knows about Eternal. So
I'd never freaking heard of it.
Yeah, so I'm it's good, I guess, have them in that. Just at the very least, people will show up for that.
But I mean, Marvel has been so good about, like, no one really knew who the Guardians of the freaking Galaxy were before that exploded, and they still managed to get away with it and make it a big thing.
Yeah. So I think there's multiple facets working to this. People will see the movie anyway. That's the short of it.
I mean, they've earned it. Like, they've earned the trust of the viewership to go see whatever they want, at least to assume it might be good.
Right.
So yeah, I'm sure he'll be awesome. A lot of the bigger news from D23 came about, speaking of Star Wars and Gwendolyn Christie, in the Star Wars realm.
Yeah.
You know what I think is funny? I think it's funny that they're saying that we're going to, like, take a break from Star Wars after this next movie. And they're lying to our faces.
Are we really?
Like, oh, we're not going to have a movie for a couple of years. Here's 3 TV shows about Star Wars. Like, who do you think you're kidding? Like, you're not taking any kind of break. I didn't think you were going harder.
No such break. And so, as promised, we did get the Mandalorian trailer. So that's one of the things. And it's like, that is not necessarily moving the narrative forward as far as, like, happening after Episode 9. Because it is, like, a prequel-ish in a way.
Yeah. The Mandalorian is a new live-action Star Wars show on Disney+, which is their upcoming streaming service. Starring, again, Game of Thrones star Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
Oberyn Martell in the role of a forever helmeted bounty hunter who will just live out a Clint Eastwood fantasy life on Tatooine, I think. I believe it's on Tatooine.
Yeah, it's, you know, but yeah. Well, either way, as I'm drawing a blank now, the trailer was quite interesting.
It was good.
Because I've never been one. They have like the Clone Wars animated series and like Star Wars Rebels. Those are all like animated, so I've never like really cared to watch those. Even though I hear they're good. This one seems pretty intense, so I think I will give it a try. I've never been one for Star Wars TV, but I think Mandalorian I could sink my teeth into.
Oh, I will too. I mean, the weird thing about this is that I rail against all this kind of like very strategic content coming out, and like I can feel them trying to manipulate me into watching it. But the thing is, I'm going to watch it.
I know, I know. I'm helpless.
It's like why I protest too much, or it's weird. But yeah, I enjoyed the trailer. I love the casting of it. I think they're making some weird choices. Like Giancarlo Esposito is going to play a villain. He's really
I was like,
good.
Whoa, okay.
Werner Herzog, who is a cult documentary filmmaker behind movies like Grizzly Man and Algiri, Wrath of God, which is not a documentary, but really, really good.
Yeah.
He's going to play like a customs officer or something. I'm not sure if you're too familiar with him, but he's a weird guy. And
I'm
like,
not super familiar.
a really big like cult figure from like the frickin' 70s and 60s.
Yeah.
And he's there going like, bounty hunting is a dangerous business, wouldn't you agree? And like, this is so weird. Why are you doing this with Werner Herzog? So So yeah, I will watch it because they have my curiosity.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And then we also had a bit of legit Star Wars Episode 9 news as well.
We did. Why don't we watch a bit of the new footage they showed from Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker,
Ooh.
now?
Yes, let's.
Your journey. Yes, it's in.
So Mia, are you like a Star Wars fan? Like Cheryl was a Star Wars super fan.
Yeah. Well, she's on a tier where she's just an expert. But I will say that I am definitely a Star Wars fan. It's been like with me my whole life. So I do love it. I love following the story and all the characters. Yeah.
Are you tapped into the internetosphere surrounding that latest footage regarding all the theories that are coming out?
Well, the big one, as people saw right at the end, was the whole dark ray, which was like, okay.
Is that just based on her having a red lightsaber, hood, and dual-bladed thing?
Yes. Very.
Okay.
Well, no. Also, a lot of this people have been thinking has been like since episode 7. Some people have seen like the duality between her and Kylo Ren. Like both seem to have like a tug and pull of like to the light and to the dark.
Right.
And so it's like some people think that they'll switch teams. Like, Kylo will be good and Rey will be dark. Others just so happen to think that that's a vision and it's not really, they're just tricking us.
There's one theory that the Emperor is possessing her and making her do crazy things. Okay,
Yeah.
I gotta say, so I know that not everyone watching loves Star Wars, but I mean, I'm sorry, guys, it's such a big part of the freaking pop culture space. We have to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen Star Wars. Okay, here's my question about the nature of this kind of final movie in the reboot cycle.
Yeah.
Or the sequel cycle. The Emperor is a character who died like a long time ago in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And like clearly they're pushing him on the promotional materials. Like he's on the poster. He's in both teasers and trailers we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Like I guess he's gonna be involved somehow. I feel like that's a little cheap. Like they are reaching back and just, who do people like and remember from the earlier movies, and we're going to push it.
And that was the thing. It was like people thought that like episode 7 was in a way just another ripoff of A New Hope, or technically the first one to hit theaters. And yeah, bringing the Palpatine back to me is like a cheap trick. In a way, I'm a little bit excited to see how it turns out, but also it's kind of like in episode 7 they built up I don't know if you know Emperor Snoke, who was the guy with the robe and the weird looking head, Andy Serkis, and then just to like be like, oh, no, he's no big deal, MBD. It was like, oh, I thought we were gonna have like the next big baddie, because Kylo Ren is kind of like, he's a little soft, right? But but Emperor Snoke I thought was going to be like the new Palpatine, and then they're like, no, Palpatine is the new Palpatine. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'll watch it, but I mean, like, they've always said like we want to get away from legacy characters. I wonder if they really have the stones to do that.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, it
so that's a firm no.
Yeah, that was a straight up lie. And but here's the thing though, they did, kill off 2 of the original people who were in the trilogy.
That's true,
and
because
so,
they would refuse to be in any more movies.
Yeah, I feel like by being vague, I'm like trying to avoid spoilers, but talking about Han and Luke, so it's like,
they've been out for years.
Are they making the right choices as far as bringing characters off and letting the past die? That's been my whole like conflict which I could, talk days and days and days about.
I think we're working up toward an era where they just make a new Star Wars movie with the original people, just made out of CGI.
Ooh,
I
wow.
bet if they want to do it, if they could, they would do it.
They could. We have the technology.
We do have the technology. Anyway, this is all kind of a larger message of so when I say that I'm concerned about like them bringing back the past, I'm also concerned about Disney being a hegemonic monstrosity that owns everything everywhere and monopolizes our time and our money. What do you think of this? There's also new news came out around D23 that Disney Plus, the new streaming service, is not going to have any R-rated content on it, which makes sense. But my mind immediately went, maybe just because it shouldn't happen like this, but it did. It went to, so that's how they're going to be to pay for Hulu too. Yeah. Like Disney Plus is so affordable. It's so reasonable. It's like $3.80 a month if you get like the special super deal they're just offering now for D23 members. But if they don't have R-rated content, I want to have a vast swath of stuff to choose from. You're going to put that on Hulu. So really, I'm going to have to buy 2 subscriptions.
Yeah.
I think they're clever.
It's hard for me, like, as a Disney purist, like, with the, little halo on my head. To me, it's like, they just want to stick with Walt's, whole idea of being, like, family
really rich.
And, family values and stuff like that.
They do, I think.
Right.
I'm being a cynical butthole.
But, I don't know, like, one side of me is kind of like most people probably already have, the Netflix and the Hulu and all that. And if not, you're ripping it off from one of your friends.
It's true.
So I think they are kind of like nestling themselves into the niche that, like, hey, we are Disney in the way that Disney is a family-friendly brand, that you can watch around your grandma or something like that. And so I think, like, by them picking up, like, Deadpool or something, I don't know if it threw them off track or whatever, but it's like, hey, well, we're the niche family-friendly brand, so deal with it and just forego the extra cash for Hulu, if you haven't already. Oh, Disney. I
see them worming their way into every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let it happen.
You're defenseless. You can't do anything about it,
I mean, all I can do is just point it out, but does it really help? We'll see. We have any comments before we close this part of the show?
Oh, gosh. Let's go back to the Star Wars. Is any new Star Wars programs aimed at an adult audience? Mandalorian trailer looked more adult.
I mean, yeah, it is, but again, it's like it can't be that adult because it's on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to explore anything too heavy.
Yeah, I don't think it won't be risque, but I do think that it's not going to be childish, that's for sure. No. I think I don't think it's really aimed at like kids or younger audiences to begin with. So maybe they are trying to like cast a wide net and say, this is not just for kids who want to watch Winnie the Pooh and Frozen, Come on down, adults.
Yeah, to their credit, Disney has often been very good at that, like at finding a truly, like, the cliche is like fun for all ages. Like sometimes that means it's made for 3-year-olds and like your parents take you to it. But there are movies that Disney has made that are actually just good. We're talking about Toy Story and Wick Club today.
Right.
Like, it's just a good movie.
Yeah.
Like, whether you're a young or you're older or whatever.
Exactly. So it's that universal appeal. Family friendly. Everyone can enjoy it.
It's good for the bottom line, man. Yeah. Everyone's watching, everyone's paying.
Sure.
All right. Well, Mia, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. But now, if we can bring in, I wonder if he's around. Bring in Josh Hill. Oh, Josh Hill. We messaged him. I wonder. Hold for 1 second, dear audience members.
Josh, come on. We want to talk about some books. Here he comes. All right. Bye, folks.
Thanks, Mia. See you later. Now we're going to bring on Josh Hill, a Song of Ice and Fire newbie and fan-sided editorial overgod. With me, we are in a series called...
That's right.
Hey, Josh, how are you? We're in a series called A Song of Dan and Josh, where you and I walk through every chapter of A Song of Ice and Fire, George R. R. Martin's unfinished We Are. You just hearing about this?
Yeah. This is breaking news to me. I didn't know. Hello, everybody. Hello, Julie. Who else do we have with us? Luis, Jen, John, Kathleen. Hello.
All right, so yeah, we are walking through A Clash
We
of
are.
Kings, still on it, and we read for today
Bran.
Bran 3. Okay.
This was Brand 3, love in Winterfell.
It was. There was a lot
Sex, love,
of,
in Winterfell.
Well, okay, yeah. Let's start with that. Let's start with all the sex.
Yeah.
So basically, this chapter
Why
is
not?
just really quick outline. You know, Bran's at Winterfell.
Yeah.
There's a feast. He's
The
host.
Lords of the North, all right?
Yeah, they're all
coming?
gathering because you know there's war going on down south.
Yeah.
And they're gathering to talk strategy, to plan. And Bran's not really going to be the guy who's like going to make the war plans, but he is the Stark in Winterfell, so he has responsibility to host everybody. I enjoy the very first part of this chapter where Bran rides a horse into the great hall at Winterfell. Everybody's eating,
Yeah.
which is one of those moments that like that's stupid. Like there's no reason to do that except to impress people.
Well, yeah. I mean, what other reason is there to ride a horse anywhere
Inside,
other than
indoors.
outdoors than to impress people?
So yeah, I mean it's you know he's riding it through so
Yeah.
people can see he's important. He is Bran Stark. He is a figurehead.
Mm-hmm.
He is the oldest male Stark in Winterfell, which makes him important.
Yeah,
And it's a
by
good
default, but
Yeah, I guess oldest Stark in general. And there's a good bit here where he says that Bran was old enough to know that it was not truly him they shouted for. It was the harvest they cheered. It was Robb and his victories. It was his lord father and his grandfather and all the Starks going back 8,000 years.
yes.
So he's playing a role here. Bran Stark is playing the role of the Lord of Winterfell, this person who other people, you know, see as the figurehead of the North, which he is. But, like, his own personal involvement, he's more detached. He does not have a good time at this feast at all, really.
No. I mean, he's Bran the Broken. Like,
I guess, yeah.
He's,
Get over the leg thing, Bran.
it is, but like he's
Okay.
seeing life as it could have been for himself. And it's never going to be exactly that. Like he can get bits and pieces and he can dabble in this life that he could have had, but he's never going to have it the way that he did.
I think that's the point of all the sex stuff in this chapter.
I think so.
Is
yeah.
to underline it's something that Bran cannot do.
That he's
Like, you
broken.
know, he's broken. Like, literally broken
Yeah.
below the waist.
Yeah.
Like, in more ways than one. You know, we have a lot of notes about just romance. I mean, literally and figuratively. I liked the bit where he remembers Marcella Baratheon coming to the last feast and staring at Robb with adoring eyes. That's
Yep.
kind of cute. I guess Marcella has a crush on Robb. Never going to consummate that. They're both going to be dead before they can do that.
Wah, wah.
Bran looks at Mira. The reeds. Okay, first of all,
Mira, yeah.
do you recall the reeds from the show? Mira
do.
and Jojen? Okay, yeah.
Mira more so than Jojen. I remember R.I.P. Jojen.
Yeah, he did die
I
earlier,
remember
and she stuck
both of
around
them.
more.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you recall that
Because they pulled Bran around for quite a while.
They did. That they were.
They took
were
up
the
after
ones.
Hodor.
Exactly. After Hodor was out, Mira just lugged that sled all around the north. Poor girl. And yeah, they protect him on his way north.
Yeah.
Do you recall how they were introduced on the show?
No, I don't.
Because it's not like this. So
No.
in this chapter, the reeds come into the feast, and they are from the Neck. They are from. They are of the Crannog men. They're basically, what do you call it? Vassals to House Stark. But they're like kind of like weird. They come from the swampy area of
Yeah.
the Neck, and like no one really knows what to do with them. They're
Yeah.
short. They got green eyes and like
From like the
moss-covered
Louisiana
stuff.
of
Sort of,
Winterfell.
yeah, a little bit. So they're a little bit odd. But in the show, they show up like after Bran leaves Winterfell. It's in this meet him on the road.
Oh, okay.
And here they get brought in earlier. Not really a huge difference, but it's up in there. Anyway, sex. Bran
Yes.
looks at Mira, you know, it's sexy. And also, when he's being taken back to his room, he sees, like, the horse master just having sex with the woman outside the Great Hall. I think the point of all this is that, you know, again, it's underlining that Bran can't do any of this stuff.
No.
That he's kind of like this kid who wanted to be he wanted to be a knight. He wanted to have a big physical job. He wanted to go and ride horses. He gets to in a little bit through a hall.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like a horse like walking through Thanksgiving dinner at your house, something like that? That's what it is. That's what this is.
You clearly haven't been to Thanksgiving at my house, so
You're from what, Minnesota?
that's right.
Yeah, Minnesotan Thanksgivings are bizarre. So yeah, he wanted to go be physical. He wanted to swing horse.
Yeah.
He wanted to swing swords. He wanted to fight people. And now he kind of has to live this life of the mind. He has to be a more passive person. He's just struggling to like, how do you get into that? How do you adjust to
Yeah.
the idea that the life you thought you were going to have, you're going to have to completely reorient yourself. And part of that means kind of being an aesthetic a bit, like giving
Yeah.
up the pleasures of the flesh because it's literally not a possibility for you now.
Pleasures of the flesh.
I mean, it's very flowery language of me, but I think it's more.
No, well said. Yeah, Bran's not going to have any pleasures of the flesh, which is, what a lot of this chapter seems to be about. And like the riding in on the horse, like he's literally riding in on his high horse, and it's like he is this person who is never going to ever be what he could have been. I mean, he ends up being in the show at least. He wins, but
I mean, but it's in a very different way
this is a mindset,
that he thought he would.
This is. I feel like he's trying to force what he could have been onto his life, and he's almost rejecting the idea that he is broken, he's crippled, he's never going to have this life, but he's still trying to force this in some act of desperation to be like, this is normal, I can still be normal, when you can be more important than normal. Being important isn't the same thing as being normal. Also, Julie came back. She left for Star Wars, but she came back for this.
I'm
Hello,
sorry, Julie. It's just so important. Like, we can't not talk about Star Wars. It's just okay.
I like Star Wars, but
everybody does.
I also like Julie, so I'm torn.
I'm the person in this office who has at least interest in Star Wars. I swear to God, everybody loves Star Wars. Although I do like it. Okay.
There's no Star Trek representation though, so.
What's happening? It's true. Anyway, we also got Sir Roderick approaching Lady Hornwood, and she makes excuse and took her leave. Like a lot of this romance stuff. I like the part where he looks at the dancing and says, like, it makes him sad. There's something else I cannot do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've established that Bran is sad, that he cannot do things that he wanted to do. All right, other bits. This isn't really like a hugely event. It's one of those chapters that's kind of in betweeny. Like it's setting up the reads definitely.
Yeah.
It's more into Bran's psychology, but like nothing huge happens. I liked the politics at the table. Just going back to like Bran's the role he's playing as Lord of Winterfell. Like one of his jobs is to taste. Like he gets the first bite of every dish.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because that's, like, what you do when you're a figurehead of a grand family in the North. And then, eventually, he's, like, so full, he just, like, sends them to people. And I like that he's just a little bit petty, where he, like, he sends salmon to Lady Hornwood, and he sends sweets to Hodor and Old Nan, because he loves them. He wants them good stuff. And Master Roderick is like, you gotta send something to your Frey cousins, too. You gotta be polite. He sends them, like, beets and turnips. Because he hates them.
Meat pie sandwiches. Or whatever.
Beets and turnips. He sends them like the grossest vegetables possible.
I know, but I'm just referencing when they all become part of a meat pie later.
Yes, that's a good time. These two, again, like are not in the show. Like these two little Frey cousins that go up to Winterfell.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not. But yes, later the Freys will become delicious pies.
Well, delicious is flexible.
It happens quite differently in the books than in the show. Okay. So yep, that's so far away.
Is this another thing where you say, it's good, just wait until we get to it in the books, and then 5 seconds later you're like, and then this happens. I'm like, well, Dan.
No, because it's not important. Like the meat pie thing is a fun little aside.
It's important to me.
Okay. Well, eventually you'll get. It's much more. Whatever. We're moving on.
Like I blame the feast. This isn't.
Yeah, this is Winterfell Feast.
The Winterfell Feast. Louise said that riding in on a horse is better than being wheeled in, which I think is kind of the point there. I like that. That's exactly. He's literally riding in on his high horse like, there's nothing wrong with me. I am Bran Stark. And it's like, well, actually.
I mean, I'm not sure. I thought it was his idea. I think it's probably like Maester Lewin, who was like, we got
yeah, exactly. It's the optics of not being wheeled in instead. And he's literally to the complete cartoonish opposite of that, which is coming in on this. I imagine like the White Horse, the doors open on their own.
Oh, totally.
Light is coming down and illuminating him and bouncing off of his pale skin. Like, yeah, that's Bran.
But again, now that he's a little more detached from life, he can have these melancholy, very mature thoughts for a kid his age, such as, some faces Bran had never seen before, others he knew as well as his own, yet they all seemed equally foreign to him. He watched them as from a distance, as if he still sat in the window of his bedchamber, looking down on the yard below, seeing everything, yet a part of nothing. He looked up and down the benches at all the faces happy and sad, and wondered who would be missing next year and the year after. He might have cried then, but he couldn't. He was the Stark in Winterfell, his father's son, and his brother's heir, and almost a man grown. This is like the age of 12 or 13 or whatever he is. It's different times.
Fast.
They grow up fast in the North, and also in the fake medieval land that we are in here. I mean, that's medieval times, right? Back then, you always heard that cliche, right? Like, you're married by 15, you pump out some kids, and it's just the way it happens. But yeah, so again, just underlining the dichotomy of Bran right now. Mm-hmm. He wants to do one thing, he can't, so he has to adjust or die. So the other thing I want to talk about before we end is the Reeds. So what's your impression of them as depicted in this chapter?
As in just general thoughts?
Yeah, just general thoughts.
I mean, I didn't think much of them. Like, are they?
I guess not.
I mean, this was a good
I
introduction.
mean, they
Like, it
say we
reminded me
swear
of
it
that.
by ice and fire. They said the title, Josh.
I know that's
always
an
important.
action movie trope that I love.
Do you?
It's great. It's like there's Bran on his Game of Thrones. I don't know. It's something like that.
Playing
But I
his
mean,
Game of Thrones.
but riding it on his horse. No, I didn't have much of an impression of them in this chapter, but it did remind me, because we're now getting to the point where I do remember more from the show. Not to keep crossing the two over, but I think
No,
it's
it's fine.
impossible
Like,
at this
do it,
point
do
to
it,
not
whatever
do
you
that. But it did remind me. I was like, oh yeah, I remember those two. But other than that, they didn't really stand out. Other than I'm like, okay, now they're going to become a part of the story.
I mean, I thought the ending was pretty creepy. So, like, immediately they get in, and then Jojen's like, where are the direwolves? So that's not a question.
Oh,
I
the
asked for.
direwolf dream. Are we going to talk about that?
Yeah, that's the end of it.
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, Bran's having more of these direwolf dreams,
Summer.
and this time he slips Summer. Good, yeah. He slips into to Summer. And the last part of the chapter is he possesses Summer, which he just kind of does in his dreams by accident.
Yeah.
And he sees Jojen and Mira are approaching the wolves, and the wolves don't attack them. So these creepy little kids who are
Yeah.
coming from the swampland and say the title of the book of the series.
They might be all right.
Well, because I think it was kind of like had a malevolent feel to it, like Jojen.
A little bit, but I felt like without there being like violence against them, it wasn't like they overcame anything. It wasn't like they killed their way to Bran in his dream. They were just there.
Oh no, but
And it wasn't necessarily a violent thing, which to
it
me
wasn't violent at all, but it was a little. Jojen's a little off.
Well,
Like
yeah,
the
he's-
last sentence is like, you know, he sees the wolves and Mira's like, don't go near them, they're dangerous wolves, and he's like, this is not the day I die. Like, why do you know that, you weird little kid? And then the final part of the chapter is told from Summer's perspective,
Yeah.
which is interesting because Bran's inside him.
Well, it's Bran's dream.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a dream, it's actually happening.
Well, it's vision.
It's both. Vision, whatever. Green dream. Tamail, Jojen, walked toward them, unafraid, and reached out for his muzzle, a touch as light as a summer breeze. Yet at the brush of those fingers, the wood dissolved, and the very ground turned to smoke beneath his feet, and swirled away laughing, and then he was spinning and falling, is the last bit. So Jojen touches Summer, and then Bran's dream goes all haywire.
Interesting.
Something's
What does it
amiss.
mean?
I don't know.
I mean, I think I know what it means.
What do you think it means?
I think it means that there's some weird kinetic connection between these. Like, Bran is clearly feeling some sort of connection. Like, these characters are going to be important in my story. He doesn't know what it means.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the falling thing where it's like, I'm lost here. I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen. But these people are here in my vision. It's not a threat. It's not like this looming violent thing like we mentioned. It's just there. And I'm confused by this, and I'm falling deeper into this mysticism of whatever he's finding these visions, and then these new people who literally just arrived and now are in his vision, in his future, because he's seeing the future-ish, maybe a little bit.
I think it's in the present, but, you know, that's weird, too. He's a hard character, Bran.
He is.
Because, you know,
Julie was a fan, though. Bran in the early days, he was a cute kid, too.
he was a cute kid. He was definitely a cute kid. Before we sign off, I wanted to read a passage about food, because I think George R.
Ooh,
Martin
is
is
this the food
famous
porn
about
one?
this. It's definitely the food porn one.
Yes.
And, you know, I think we can, he's not famous, but Martin is known for his life descriptions of food, and I want to read this one for you and for the audience and see, and just
Fireside
kind of
chat.
interrogate it for a second. What does this add to the chapter, if anything?
Okay.
Or is it just indulgent?
Bring me back into it.
Such food Bran had never seen, course after course after course, so much that he could not manage more than a bite or two of each dish. There were great joints of oryx roasted with leeks, venison pies chunky with carrots, bacon and mushrooms, mutton chops sauced in honey and cloves, savory duck, peppered boar, goose, skewers of pigeon and capon, beef and barley stew, cold fruit soup. Lord Wyman had brought 20 casks of fish from White Harbor, packed in salt and seaweed, whitefish and winkles, crabs and mussels, clams, herring, cod, salmon, lobster, and lampreys. There was black bread and honey cakes and oat and biscuits. There were turnips and peas and beets, beans and squash and huge red onions. There were baked apples and berry tarts and pears poached in strong wine, Wheels of white cheese were set at every table, above and below the salt, and flagons of hot spiced wine and chilled autumn ale were passed up and down the tables. Okay, my question to you. Is that food pornography? Or
Yes.
is this or do we need this to understand
that is
the
food
how
literotica is what that is. That is... I think what the point of it is in the chapter is to really get across, A, George R. R. Martin likes food, and B, it is this grand, almost overly done dinner and party. Like, there's
that's a good
so
point.
much there. Like, and it's the descriptions of it. I think it gets so far into it that it just gets so over the top that you're like, oh my God, this is gluttony. And it's like, well, that's kind of the point. Like, this is
I think
this
that's a good point.
huge feast.
Yeah, like if the point is, it's the same thing as Bran riding in on the horse.
Yeah, it's over the top.
It's pageantry.
Yeah.
It's supposed to, make a statement that this is a Winterfell party, and Winterfell parties are off the hook, and to be respected, and we have the best of everything, so you should respect us and follow us.
That, and I found myself rolling my eyes a little bit at the description when I was reading it for the first time, and hearing you read it, not because of your wonderful reading skills.
Mellifluous.
But just because it is so over the top that you're like, oh, yes. Then you get halfway through and you're like, oh, okay. All right. And it's just like beating you over the head with it. And I think that's also kind of a commentary on, while the Starks are like, quote unquote, the good guys here, they are just as likely to fall into this, pageantry, as you said.
You got to make a statement.
Yeah.
It's also hard to write. Like, imagine if you had to, write this paragraph and, think of all those foods.
Yeah.
Like, I would be Googling for, a half hour to come up with all that stuff.
I mean,
I can't just summon, whitefish and winkles, crabs and mussels, crabs, herring, cod, salmon, lobster, and lampreys from just out of my top of my head.
the lampreys is just nice shoehorned in
The hell
there.
is a lamprey?
It's a gross eel thing that
Is it?
eats
Okay.
fish. Yeah. They've got them in Lake Michigan, so next time
they
you dip your
surf
toe,
them?
be careful.
It's like
I didn't
papada?
think so because I think they're a large parasite.
Oh, gross.
Well, they're a parasitic species. But the point is, that also goes into the over the topness of this, where it's everything, plus
got
even kind of the
everything.
crappy stuff. We've got it all. So
Cold fruit soup.
it's like that scene in Temple of Doom where they're eating the monkey brains,
Yeah,
like
good
that
times.
kind of thing. Where I was just like, oh, it's over the top. What are we
Okay.
doing here? It's
But
cartoonish.
I think it's necessary. Also, just before...
Well,
signing
it
off,
is
I mean, I don't know if it's necessary, but it's also just, you want to set the scene. That's what's there. So describe it, and the reader will be sucked in.
No expense spared, says Julie. True.
No expense
Very
spared at
true.
all. All right, any other final thoughts, Josh, before we sign off for the week?
No. What's the what's our next chapter?
Catelyn 2.
Catelyn 2.
Catelyn 2. We're a third through the book and only the second chapter. We are moving right along. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Join us next week, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time for more Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, John Fiction, Sci-Fi, Fantasy News, and more A Song of Dan and Josh as we continue to walk through A Clash of Kings. Thank you very much and have a pleasant week.